Hi guys, it's Blackie. Excuse me. I tried an experiment right after supper. I went and basically took a third of a watermelon, put it through a blender, and made me like a slushy out of it. And was chug-a-lugging that right before I came out to do my video. So sorry. Uh, Kodak, good evening. How you doing? Well, we got the dog days of August now starting, getting that thick, heavy heat where you go to breathe and you just feel it going in and out of your lungs. Yeah. But hang on. September's around the corner. Fall's coming. You know. Jeff, good evening. To Newfoundland, Canada. Awesome. Stephen, good evening. Stephen Davis, good evening, California. Bear's in the house, good evening. Randy, hello. Jeff, hello. Hiram, how you doing? Oh, Stephen, you got you a fire. Sorry to hear that. But California burns. It's burned as far as I can ever remember. You know, every year California burned. You know. Well, I take that back. There was some time when Reagan was the governor, and they were doing controlled burns all over to keep the load from getting so big, so you'd have these huge fires. And everybody complained about the smoke, and so they outlawed it and quit it. And there was a couple of years there, and then big, huge canyons full of brush went to burning. So always burning. Gimlet, good evening. Richard Hayes, good evening. Yeah, Herbert, I see that y'all are getting all the stuff up there. You got the remnants of that hurricane that went just south of me this week. And plus you got other storm fronts kind of dying out right there. So I hope y'all are okay up there. Michael Johnson, good evening. It is pronounced Stephen. Okay. Yeah, Stephen, that's correct. A lot of those pines and other things got to have the fire. They've grown to be fire dependent. I remember when they discovered that in the National Park Service in Yellowstone, that the aspens needed fire to make them germinate their seeds, and some kinds of pines too that need fire in order to make them pop the seed husk and germinate. So, 2020, good evening. Place in, yeah. If you add honey and lemon juice to that watermelon puree, you can freeze it into something like sherbet. Good idea. I'll try that. It's just one of them things where I love watermelon. When I was a kid, I love watermelon. But at the same time, when you got all this beard and everything, you trying to eat it off the thing, it makes a mess. And so I was thinking about it earlier, and we had a big hunk of watermelon left, and it's time to do something with it because we got it this Tuesday, and it was already cut in a container. So I thought, let's see if I can just run it through the blender right quick, make something I can drink rather than got to, work on. And it's really good. It made me happy. James Singer, hello to Columbia, South Carolina. Gray Wolf, good evening. Gray Wolf, public service announcement. If you intend to live a happy retirement, do not learn mechanics or let anyone know about it, or own a pickup truck. If you own a pickup truck, you're never lonely because somebody needs something moved. And hey, buddy, pal, can you help me move something? And you work on cars, right? Well, my wife's car is making a noise. I don't work on modern cars. Sorry, dude. $108 today in Texas. Yes, sir, brother. It's dog days. Stacy Sparks, hello to the West, by God. I was seeing a thing on Facebook right before I got onto this. They're saying it hit 93 today above the Arctic Circle. So them people in northern Canada and Alaska, they're getting 93 degrees. That's awesome. Well, I'm sure they're not happy, but so Gulf Coast, Blackie, did you see there's another disturbance in the Atlantic? You weren't lying about it. Yeah. Usually, whenever we have a cold, wet winter, we have a super active hurricane season. It's just storm after storm after storm, one after the other. I have seen 4 hurricanes at a time where we had 3 in the Atlantic and 1 in the Pacific, 1 in the Gulf at one time. And it was the summer immediately after a wet, cold winter. So I kind of expect it. I'm figuring between now and 1st of November. Usually it's October they die out, but my guts tell me we're going to have an early winter, and hopefully it'll die out quick. I hope so. I don't want people's property to get damaged. Yeah, Gray Wolf. Hold it close to the phone. I'll fix it from here, Or what would the old faith healers? I put it on the TV screen, and I'll lay hands on the camera, and I remember those days. Cow Tipper, hello to Louisiana. Jeff, it was 75 to 80 there. Ooh, that sounds so good. Oh. Yeah, Justin, brother, we just got to hang on. Now's the hard part. Now you got to lean into it. But when we get that first cool night, you know what I mean? Where it ain't just dropping down to 70 or maybe 72, 73, but it actually goes down like 62 or something like that. We'll come running out of the house in the morning like, we made it. It's like waiting for the ice to break up north, waiting for the heat to break. Stacy, I hear you. I drove many trucks, and the engine runs it right at 200 degrees on a diesel. So you're in that cab, you're sitting in heat no matter what you do. I used to carry these small hand towels. I kept about 8 of them just for wiping sweat, and I'd hang it out in the window because we didn't have AC. Just had windows down and let the air dry it, to do like that. It was tough summers back in them days. Hello, Brad in West Virginia. Correct. Bear was pointing out that Hurricane Opal was a November storm. That year, we had a mild winter, and then we had that long fall where it kept staying warm all the way up till December. I can remember December where it was 91. I remember Christmas Day where it was 83. So, yeah. Stephen LeDrank, Blackie, the ladies over there they're not answering the phone. They're open from 10 a.m. till 4 p.m. Central Time, and they're not open on Saturday and Sunday. That might be when you missed them, or they simply may have been in the back digging something out and didn't hear the phone. I'm sorry. I was over there with Bear on Wednesday and shot a video over there that's going to be coming out pretty soon. They were pretty busy. Oh, Tony, low 50s. Oh, yeah. How I would love that. There was a thing popped up on Facebook that was claiming that we had an Arctic front coming down, and it was supposed to be low 60s or upper 50s in the morning for like 1 or 2 days in the coming week. Oh, please. Oh, please. You let that come down here, my old butt will be in the woods so fast I'll break the sound barrier. But right now it's just that heat and oppressive, you just can't do nothing. Tim Pierce, yeah, we're going to have a string of storms coming. If the high pressure sits on the south like it done in the historic past, where we get in the dog days of August, we get a high pressure cell that just sits on top of us, then it's going to curve a lot of those hurricanes up to the East Coast. or throw them underneath it and they'll go hit Mexico or Texas. But they won't curve up into us because you got all that high pressure sitting there. But I don't know if one's moved in yet, but I'm expecting it. Usually in August, one just sits on us and there's no air moving. Craig, what's up? Might float down and see you after Debbie goes through. Holler at me. We'll meet and have lunch or something. Bob, hello to Southwest Ohio. Oh yeah, Terry, you remember deer hunting in a t-shirt? I can remember breaking a sweat and having to just come out of your dang camouflages. So much sweat in November. You came out in the morning and it was like 68, and by 10 o'clock it was like 85 to 90 because we had heat just sitting here on us. It was horrible. And if you got a deer, you had to clean that sucker. I mean, now, because it'd start going bad in a hurry. You had to gut it quick. And I had a friend that made that mistake. He did drop a deer legally, and he put it in the back of the truck, pulled up to the house, and got sidetracked for about 4 hours with something that urgently needed taken care of. He never thought about the deer because of what was going on. It wasn't life and death, but it's one of them things, you know what I mean? And when he came back, went out there and hung up that deer, it was already bad. When he went to hang it up, you could smell it. It was already, it gone rancid in that heat. So I don't even consider going hunting really in in the hot years up until January. I just don't even mess with it. Keep all three. Good evening. Oh, Stephen Ledring. My phone's always busy. It is, brother. Mine is always busy. Blackie, do you know where I can order competition parts for my Pieta 51 Navy? Try Taylor's and Company. I have had really good results with them of ordering parts through Taylor's and Company. They've got direct line back to Italy. And a lot of times, if you're looking for something oversized, you can shape down to get advantages in competition and things. They'd be a good choice. Mudslinger, yep, it's August. Ronald Green, good evening. Will, yeah, Tropical Storm Debbie just dropped about 15 inches on us in South Carolina. When that storm was about even with Tampa, what I do is go to the weather that's posted on my computer, that comes with the thing, and click on wind, and you can get an idea how powerful a storm is by how big the air current is around it. And when it was just a tropical storm, which is like a really, really bad, well, not really, really bad, but just a bad thunderstorm. Big, bad thunderstorm is all it is. And yet the air circulation from Tennessee all the way down to Cuba was all doing this around that storm. It was the center of it. That's an upper level disturbance that a hurricane's formed in the bottom of the ground level. And it sucked moisture all over the Pacific, from the Atlantic, the Gulf Coast, and it just, you knew it's going to dump when it goes. And so, yeah, the Carolinas are getting just pounded right now because it's still, even that it came out and it's turning, going back in. It's just big upper air. It's sucking moisture. Oh, no. Yeah. Big E Knife, hello. Yeah, being up in Massachusetts, primitive arms season right around the corner. Did you see Thompson Center now exists again? They had become part of Smith and Wesson. Well, it's been bought and turned into a separate company now, and they're going to go back into operation. making, as I understand, I don't know the entire line, but I was watching a thing on it the other day by the new owner of it, and he was pointing out the Thompson Cinder pistols, the bolt action rifle that they had that was interchange barrels, and the muzzleloaders. So maybe they'll be back in pumping out muzzleloaders pretty soon. Tim Pierce, thank you very much. Cool. Book bags for doctor visits, use it like a haversack. Yeah, they work well. Peter, Blackie, my strop is dulling my knife. I don't understand why. Will cleaning it cure the problem? It can. If you've got too much grit somehow into the compound or into the surface, it will act like sandpaper. Which sandpaper, you understand. But yes, it can. And that's one of the reasons that whenever you stone or physically hone a knife, always wipe it off before you go to a strop. Because if not, those fine particulates of steel that you pulled off the blade are still hanging on the blade, and you're just grinding them into your strop. Strop should be clean. It's to polish. It's more to stroke and polish it than anything else. And so if it's dulling your knife, it's too aggressive. I would clean it real good, go back and try. If it's still doing it, you may have to change out for a different strop because it's just got too much there that's giving you problems. John Kennedy, good evening. John Kennedy, yes, sir, I did. They've got a lot of new stuff in. In fact, I went out there and was talking to them about their new stuff they got in. So that'll be coming up in a video very soon. Jared Oliver, hello. Gray Wolf, you got your parts from VTI and EMF. Both of those are a good place to get them. Dixie used to be the place to go. Nowadays, I understand they're not as good at that. But I was looking for some parts, and I went to Taylor. But I'm just tickled that there's still places we can get parts for them. Drew B., any whiskey or new drinks to recommend? Not at this time. But we have a local distillery that is set up about 35 miles from me that's making whiskey, and they have free samplings. And I intend to go over there and try out and see what they have on the menu. So if there is something of quality that I genuinely do appreciate, I will be happy to report what I think is decent whiskey from that manufacturer. Cow Tipper, Thompson Center is awesome. So glad to hear it. My first rifle was a 36 Seneca. Good evening, Mr. Mike Simmons. A good friend of mine had a 36 like that, and that was his preferred squirrel gun at the beginning of the year. Because down here where I'm at, when the beginning of the season, leaves were all over the trees. So you had to either have something to bust it like a shotgun, or you had to be like a laser and thread it through the leaves to get them. And he loved the challenge using that Seneca, and which he called it the squirrel killer. And he was really good with that thing, which he took quite a bit of other game with it. You can't hunt deer with it in Alabama because it's got to be 40 caliber or larger. But he took a couple of big hogs and stuff with it. Okay, let's see. What do you think about the retractable firing pins Uberti is using on its Colt clones? Well, being able to retract does give you some advantages. It's just simply holding it back further. I like the older ones where the firing pin protruded through because I could index it between two rims. Either hammer down on an empty or index it between two rims. Either one. And if the firing pin won't go through, you can index it down on the rim. And if it is not a true safety transfer bar. But then like the Uberti that has like my old one, where it's a pin in the safety notch that pushes up and a little bitty block drops down underneath the firing pin and blocks it frame to frame. That's safe to carry like that. That's mine that I've had since the 90s, like that. And you're not going to drop it and it go bang because it's solid metal to metal with the hammer all the way down, everything locked. So I like those. It's not a retractable firing pin on mine. It's that moving block on mine. Yeah, lawyers, you cannot import a gun without a safety on it. Although, for example, this is something that came up the other day. You cannot import a revolver into the United States with less than a 3-inch barrel. So how do you import a 2-inch barrel snubby? What Taurus did was they have the gun and it actually has a longer barrel, but the barrel's only shaped and finished like a tube, and then the main barrel sticks on out like your thumb sticking out like that. And what they do is they import it with a 3.5-inch tube sticking out, so to speak, and they put it in the milling machine and mill it to 2 inches because you can't import it with anything less than that, but you can sell it. Once you've imported it, you can modify the gun. And so they just mill off that 1/2-inch barrel. That's the reason when you pick up a Taurus snub nose and look at it, then the barrel's shiny white. That's where they milled it off. It's not finished there. Kentucky Prepper, good evening. Okay. Okay. Prepper 4. Blackie, I know I asked this before, but I'm still struggling. Stainless steel Mora, Garberg versus carbon. What are the pros and cons of each? Which better edge retention? If proper heat treat is applied to either one, okay, equally, so that neither one has an inferior heat treat, then the carbon steel is going to stay sharper longer, because when you look at carbon steel underneath a microscope or great magnification, what you're going to see is this. It's going to look like saw teeth facing you as these individual fibers stick out right there at the edge. This is one thing that makes it cut so well, because that's kind of like saw teeth. When you look at quality stainless steel, good heat treat, and you look at it under that kind of magnification, that's what you see. There aren't any fibers. Stainless steel don't have the fibers. And so back in the day, that's the reason people said that a stainless knife wouldn't cut nearly as well as a carbon steel knife. And that was because of those fibers. Now, if you use a stainless steel knife and use a diamond hone to sharpen it, it will put teeth on it, because when you sharpen on diamond stone, the diamond being so much harder than the steel, it actually cuts grooves in it and gives it teeth. Done like that, either knife will work perfectly fine. But the Garberg carbon or stainless, my choice, if you laid them both down there and it didn't matter which one I picked up, I would probably pick up the carbon, unless I lived in some sort of environment like around salt water or in the far north where you're constantly in water and stuff like that because of snow, in which case the stainless steel would be the better choice. But as far as those two, for edge retention, etc., they should be about equal, but I really think that the carbon will cut better, just because I'm used to carbon knives. I know how to do carbon knives, and I hope that helps. Like I said, if you told me pick one, and it doesn't matter which one, I'm going to pick up the carbon, simply because I know it better. Stacy Sparks. Never underestimate the bottom shelf. Old Crow all the way. Hoorah! Cuddy Sark. I grew up on White Lightning, and so when we ever did take a drink, it was strong and full bodied and had a bite to it because we're drinking. We're not teetotaling. We're taking a drink of something. And those guys that wanted the super smooth and everything else, they didn't want to drink. They just wanted to look like they were swallowing something brown. I want something that's got some body to it. Okay, let me catch back up. Oh, Gulf Coast. Blackie, do you know anyone who lived during the Great Depression and what they had to do to get to work through it? My granddaddy. He raised 8 kids during the Great Depression. You hunt, you fish, you run traps, you do what you can for money, you sell any marketable skill you got to anybody that's willing to pay you. Bottom line. It was never easy. It was never fun. And he made White Lightning. And that was a way to make money. So you do whatever you got to do to get through it. A marketable skill of some kind, other than your job, something that you can make a little money on the side is always, everybody's got a talent. I don't care who you are. Somebody will pay you for something you do. But you don't think it's important because it's so simple for you. But like I had a friend of mine that, oh my God, the cakes she would bake. It was light years beyond anything you go by at a store or just buy a box and make. She'd make it all by scratch. And she started doing that to her coworkers. She'd bring in a thing of brownies or whatever, and people would go to ordering brownies from her. And she'd charge them $25 a dozen for brownies, and people were paying. They were legit brownies, not those special brownies. And but she made cakes and tea cakes and everything else. And she started making so much money doing that. Her full-time job was actually getting in the way. So she went to the bosses and said, "Can I go to part-time?" And they needed to cut payroll. I said, "Sure, we'll make you part-time." So she went to part-time on her job where she could do her stuff. And then she was working with that, and it really gave her money. So it comes down to you just going to have to find nits and tricks and tips and little ways to do it. If food is the problem, get into hunting, fishing, canning, etc. Go in halves with friends and buy a cow or buy a hog, things like that, and just work your way around. Cow tipper, Blackie, what camo are you wearing? This is actually Danish, but it's based on British. Gordon, no, that is not uncommon. And it's because the hammer's not stopping, it's going further in because of the pinhole. It's fine. Tennessee Smoky. Yep. H&R partner. I heard a lot of wild game and fish were taken out in the south. It was. We were poor. We ate everything. You got to remember, Reconstruction came in and that screwed up a lot of things. Rightly so, but it was just stating a fact. And it disturbed a lot of people trying to grow food crops and etc. because there wasn't anybody to hire. Forget about what had happened before. There wasn't anybody to hire, and you didn't have the mechanical ability to pick that much corn or whatever. And so it caused trouble. And then by the early 1900s, everybody had ate all the deers, the hogs. Forget it. The only wild hog down here was some piglet got out of somebody's pen. I can remember wild chickens in the woods because some tornado tore up a chicken house, and Rhode Island Reds had got down there in the woods. We didn't have coyotes here then. And so we'd go hunting chickens. It was, everybody ate everything because we was poor. And you trying to feed the family you came up with way, And I am sure that the game wardens had. It was a nightmare to them because this guy's not trying to be mean and cruel. He's got multiple small kids and he's just trying to feed the family. So he shot a deer out of season because he's trying to feed his family. I know it must have been a really tough time back in them days. And I've heard a lot of stories about them. Splitting Knox, how's the weather down here there in LA? Hot, sweaty, and muggy, brother. We're in the dog days now. It's hold your breath. Every day, even if it gets to 92, 93, the heat index is like 108, 109. So this year we have not broke 100 without heat index. So I'm happy with that. That's a good year for us. Dennis, good evening. Yeah, Play saying there's a Supreme Court case coming up taking a look at anti-distillation laws. I agree. I've heard something about that. At present, it is in Alabama. I cannot speak to other states, but in Alabama, it's completely legal for you to create wine, beer, or hard liquor for your consumption only, or someone come to your house, you give it to them, but not for any kind of sale. You cannot sell it. That's a big no-no. But I have quite a few friends that make their own mead, make beer, make wines, stuff. I've made wines way back in the day. So, it's perfectly legal in the state of Alabama for your own consumption. And you can run white lightning still, as long as it's not being used for anything else. And Alabama passed a law back in the 80s that you can get a license to run white lightning to sell, but you can't sell it to people. It's got to be sold as an additive to go into gasoline. And so you could do that, which means you didn't have to have it food safe. You could run whatever as long as it was alcohol. And I know a couple of big farm operations that started doing that. They ran stills to produce high proof alcohol, but you can't drink it. It's toxic. And you had to put color. I think it was purple. There was something you got that made it purple, and then it'd be sold to the gas industry to be used as an additive. So a lot of stuff that can be done. Trooper 2221, good evening. How you doing? Yeah, Turtle D, that's the thing. Everybody thinks, oh, I'll run to the woods. No. Everybody else is going to have the same idea. And it's going to get real lean real quick. And I did a seminar for a big church group, I don't know, about 3-4 years ago now. And they hired me to come in and speak to them. And they said, they wanted to know what the worst case scenario was. And I said, sure, be glad to do it. And I came in, explained where I was going from, and I explained to them, plug in X, whatever X is, that whatever your favorite thing is, collapse, meteor strike, whatever, doesn't matter. But if there is nothing left, so to speak, there is no organization or government left, and the whole thing is broken down, for the first 3 months, it'll be kind of like this. Then for the next 6 months, it'll be really, really desperate because everybody's clawing over each other trying to get what's left. And then you're going to have about the 2 years of the great dying. People going to starve. And there ain't going to be no gas left. There ain't going to be no bullets left. There ain't going to be nothing like that. And people are going to be few far between. And those that do have the skills, that's got their own little cubby hole that can wait it out till that time period, will probably be okay. But even then, you don't know what it is. Medical or whatever can take out everybody. Look at the fact that some reports believe that there were upwards of 10 million people in the Americas when Columbus landed. And within 25 years, there was less than 1 million left in the whole continent because disease went through. They probably came from Europe. Could have been Viking, could have been European explorers, could have been somebody blowed off course, whatever. And but whatever it was got in the Americas. And the conquistadors talked about finding cities that were abandoned in their explorations. And it was because this big dying had occurred, and it was some disease went through, probably something European, and they had no resistance to, and so they just died in droves. We don't know. That's a story for another day. Oh yeah, Trooper, you're out there in Oklahoma waiting on the front. Hope it's a good cool front. Yeah, gray wolf. Tim Pierce, better hide your dog. Everybody's hunting squirrel. There was a reporter that was the NBC reporter back in the late 60s to I think, the mid 70s in Moscow. He was the official reporter. And so his job was to be at the press conferences for all the Kremlin and stuff like that. So he lived in Moscow for like 15 years. And he went back in about 92 or 93. They did a special, and he went back over to see how things after the fall of the Soviet Union. And he went back over there and was amazed. He said that he could tell how things had gotten so much better. And the other reporter said, "How you mean?" He said, "Because there's pets. I remember when people would meet on the street corner to trade their dog or cat to you for your dog or cat because they didn't have the heart to kill their own to eat it. So you'd swap with somebody else so you could go home and kill that one." He said that's how bad it was in the 1970s in Moscow. So times can get tough. Gary Boy, hello to Utah. Satchmo, good evening. Bill Hines, good evening. Jared Oliver, Blackie, you going to be at the gathering every day, or the gather thing every day, or just certain days thinking about coming? I'm going to be there all of it. Me and Dakota are going to be coming up to it, and I should be there from the first day to the last day. And I will probably, depending on various things, have to leave probably about lunch or so on Sunday heading back home because it's such a long run for me. It's going to be about 12, 14 hours for me. And then Dakota's got to get back to work on Monday. So we got to get back to Alabama. But other than that, I should be there the whole time. Jeff, glad to do it. I hear you live in the woods on the side of a hill. The only time I'm on level ground is when I'm in the house. I hear you. Yep, Turtle D. You watch how they starve the people to death and work them to the bone. Yeah. I like to watch a lot of real documentaries, serious that ain't trying to push some sort of agenda, but just tell you what was really going on. And the thing that most impressed Khrushchev when he came over here was not the military and all of that. It was our grocery stores. In the Soviet Union, you went to the grocery store, you went to the counter, and you told them what you wanted, and the person went in and gathered it and brought it back to you. You didn't go get it. Things were that tight to keep you from stealing. See, and they on the tour or whatever, he walked into a grocery store and just saw, like we see, apples, oranges, tomatoes, everything bustling. You just walked around and picked up whatever you wanted. And that's what really impressed him the most. And when we went back to the Soviet Union, he demanded that they start doing it like that. That we have to do this, because they just didn't have food. It's bad that people have to live that way. Common sense, Karen. Hello. Tennessee Smoky. It's estimated it would take at least 48 hours, 72 hours for military to mobilize inside the U.S. In most cases, yeah. Um, and there's a pretty good reason for that. Um, One, whenever X happens, let's say a hurricane hit, like when we had Katrina hit, the military bases have to make sure they don't have a major problem, and that their personnel are taken care of. So that's the first 24 hours afterwards. That they're going to be making sure that everybody's been treated and taken care of, and we got our own wives and kids housed and etc. Got food coming in. The helicopters that flipped over and caused the fire, that's taken care of. There's no whatever, and then they can start looking outward. Well, that's 48 hours right there, you know, and so you're looking at somewhere to 2 to 3 days before anything really starts happening. That's the reason you got to take care of you whenever possible. Michigan Silverback, you're welcome. Yeah, I went to honestly, that wrapping video was supposed to be yesterday, and Blackie didn't pay attention to the date, and for some reason it was supposed to pop up on Wednesday, but it didn't. It popped up today, so that, hair is gray, and it was late in the day, and hair is gray. So yeah, exactly. A military response is not a 9/11 response. 9/11 is set up for as fast as they can, knowing that the bigger agencies are going to be coming up behind them, like FEMA and all like that. That's their tiered layer system, you know, is what they plan on. But like when we had Katrina, it was just so big over such a massive area, so many people. If we have a New Madrid earthquake go off like it did in 1814, we're talking about 30 states could have damage. If just what happened then happened today with our current infrastructure, if the same amount of shaking happened then today, 30 states would have damage. If not Columbia, but it's that fault line right off of Northern California, Wisconsin, and all that up in that area, that we know in 1700 when it cooked off last time, the tidal wave hit the top of the mountains, and those are a couple of thousand feet in elevation. So it went all the way to the top. And when the whites got out there and they found the Indians in the early um, mid 1700s, the Russians were one that came down first. The Indians wouldn't live on the coast; they'd live up on top of mountains. And they thought they were just dumb and superstitious. And they said, no, the water got angry because they'd survived that tsunami from that huge earthquake out there that was probably about an 8 or a 9. And they figured that the waves that hit the California coast were 200 to 300 feet high in less than 10 minutes of the earthquake, because it's a slosh right off of it. So, and they're still building houses there today. I mean, the special I watched were Spokane, Washington. They got schools in the flood zones. And their game plan is they're going to get all these grade schoolers, and I think there's 1,100 of them in that school, to get up, leave everything, go load up in the buses that are parked outside, then drive the buses 4.5 miles to high ground, all in 25 minutes or less. Yeah. I can understand you being dumb enough to build a business in there, but you built a school there. In fact, when you look at the FEMA plan, in case that Cascadia, the Cascadia goes off like it did in 1700, if it goes off, what is the official U.S. FEMA plan? It says from the top of the mountain to the left of the coast is considered lost and everybody's dead. Don't even try to help them. There's 2 million people living in that area. But the official FEMA plan is from the top of the mountain to the coast, just consider them all dead and gone. Work on the other side of the mountain to this side and up in Northern California. That's the official plan. Why would anybody want to live there? Ugh. Yes, Justin, do not get on soapbox. Tennessee Smoky, I saw that. Ken Albridge, 25 minutes, be like herding cats. Can you imagine being an adult in that situation? Not the principal, just an adult working at that school, and an 8.9 earthquake happens, and you can't stand up. It's shaking so hard because that whole part of that ground there liquefies and just shakes like jello. If the building is standing, that's going to be a question. And then as soon as the building stops shaking, you know that water's coming, and you have to somehow get all 30 of these kids in this room. Forget the 1,100 in the building. Go get in those buses and hope the buses didn't get tipped over or blocked in or whatever, and drive 4 miles to high ground, because everybody's going to die if you don't. Insanity. Stacy. Okay. Thank you very much for dropping in. Bill Van, correct. They said in Northern California at 1,000 feet elevation and less, they consider you lost when that goes off. So that's one of the reasons. Remember when we were talking, the book that I recommend for anybody wanting to live off grid is Your Dream Cabin by J. Wayne Fears, because he goes in depth into little details like that FEMA plan. Wherever you are in the country, I don't care if you're in Arkansas, New York, wherever, his book is available. Get it, because he talks about your local farmers co-op, what questions to ask. It's free information they have to give you. What from the state you can ask, they have to give you flood plans and FEMA plans and all of these things. How many times is this area that I'm looking to buy a house flooded in the last 100 years? What was the factors that caused it? What is the average weather in this valley that I'm wanting to build my house in? Is it Tornado Alley that it has a tornado every couple of years come through it? Or is it never had a tornado in recorded history? Things like that. And a good friend of mine was going to Washington State to live, and I gave him a copy of that book. And I said, before you buy someplace, because he was going to Spokane, read this book. And he did. And he's the one that pointed out to me, he said, I got the FEMA plan, and there's no place on this side of the mountain that you're going to live. I said, yep. And he said, so he commutes almost 50 miles because he's on the other side of the mountain, and he has to commute 50 miles in, because once he read that and figured out what was predicted and possible, no. It'd be like somebody building a house on top of a volcano. Well, it might blow up. Yeah, it might. You know, the Lord gave you sense for a reason, but most people don't seem to want to use it. Whoa, OLA, hello to Norway. Grey Wolf, Blackie, are you a bow guy? In my youth, I did use a bow quite a bit, and I was a archery instructor for the Boy Scouts. And I hunted and did quite a bit with bows. I have not used a bow in several years. I kind of got away from it. But I did a lot of bow stuff. Bows are real quiet. Oh, Bill Van took 3 days to get to my wife after the '89 earthquake. Yeah, man, that would just be a nightmare to me. That's one of my fears of going off on these trips, like going up to Ohio or going off or whatever. I really fear that one of these days I'm gonna be that far away from my wife and New Madrid's gonna cook off. You know, and whoever gets between a old redneck and coming home is gonna have a very bad day. That's all I'm gonna say. Blackie's coming home. So, Jeffrey, yes, I've heard of the HARP system and the weathers and the problems they've had with it. Yes, Johnny, about the Corps of Engineers in Caddy, Texas. Yeah, when the Corps of Engineers went to avoid flooding in Florida and changed the course of several rivers, and then the Everglades started going dry. They never thought about that. Yeah, Carlos, I saw that. Um, that that storm set may come through in there. Hopefully, it will not get Puerto Rico. Y'all got enough trouble now anyway. You don't need any more of that. Andy, hello to South Georgia. They are. And in fact, Gray Wolf, that's one of the things I teach in one of my, we shall say, urban classes of World Go Stinky. Um, I teach them how to make bows out of PVC pipe because when everything goes sideways, how many of these buildings are going to have PVC pipe in them that I can salvage out? And all I need is an oven mitt and a campfire, and I can heat and shape it into a bow in like 20 minutes. And by reading on the actual pipe, schedule 20, a 40, a 60, or an 80. A schedule 80 bow is about a 75-pound draw. You know, a schedule 20 is about like you can small game hunt with that and great for teaching. And so we made some for neighborhood kids one year. I got a couple of 6-foot lengths, 5-foot lengths of 3/4 inch schedule 20 pipe and just heated it up and shaped it. I drove stakes in the ground in the proper shape, and then I heated up the whole thing with a hot air gun, and then it becomes pliable like a noodle. And I just shaped it to the shape of the bow and let it cool for maybe 20 minutes. We cut the nocks in, put the string on them, had the kids make a hand grip out of duct tape and a few pieces of foam and had them shooting. You know, so you can do a lot with that. If you want to learn how to do that stuff, the YouTube channel I recommend is Backyard Bower. That's it, Backyard Bower. And it's a young man that was in Hawaii and was obviously having to take care of his kids, and he was bored. And so he started making bows out of PVC pipe, even to the point of cosmetically making them look like real wood. And he took the bow from Lord of the Rings, Legolas's bow, and showed you how to make a copy of it. How you take the pipe, mash it flat, cut a V out of it, and then push the two ends together and reseal it to make the nocks and make it look like an elven bow or just a 60, 70, 80-pound draw hunting bow. And so that's one of those things that once you know it and they start talking about everything going sideways, I bet I can find some PVC pipe and make a usable bow in just a few minutes with a campfire and an oven mitt and a couple of sticks driven in the ground. So, Johnny, any more ground pounder update videos coming? Yes, there'll be a new ground pounder tomorrow, and we'll be talking about pocket knives because several people have asked me to go ahead and jump to knives. So we're going to talk about pocket knives tomorrow. And I got a water bladder that I just got Wednesday when me and Bear went to the surplus place, and we're going to be talking about water carry options, water bladder, canteen cook sets, etc. We're going to be talking about those coming up next week. If not Sunday, we'll see. I got a list those right there are the videos I got in line to start doing. And yes, one of y'all wanted me to demonstrate how to tighten up on a stove the handle of the Swedish stove. I have not forgot you. It's in that list, and it will be coming out very soon on how to the Pathfinder's new Swedish stove they brought out a year ago, whatever. The handle is too loose, and when he puts the frying pan on top, the handle falls down and sits in the heat. How to tighten that connection up a little bit. So we're going to talk about that in the video. So it's coming. Yeah, Gray Wolf, it will down the line get brittle, but it's something, as far as PVC bow, you can make it quick. It's cheap. It's expendable even. And a good friend of mine, when I taught him how to make one, he took some Schedule 60 stuff and made a really good hunting bow. And he keeps it unstrung behind the seat of his truck with a couple of arrows for that opportunity, you know. And where he can just pull out behind the seat and he can have a quiet thump, you know. There was somebody that had hit a deer, and the deer was back legs were broke. It was a big doe. So he just pulled his bow out, walked up, gave her a coup de grace, whack, and she was out, you know. And law enforcement got there with the guy that hit her had ended up in the ditch. So he'd done first aid for the guy that hit the ditch. And then once the cop got there and documented, yes, the deer died, and said, I'm going to haul off the deer if you ain't got an objection. The cop said, go ahead. So he just threw it in the back of the pickup truck and brought it home. You know, having that bow was handy. Now, on the other hand, if he'd stepped out there with a 12 gauge and shot it, the people in the houses around there may have got a little upset. So it's always handy to make. If somebody breaks into the truck, they're getting a piece of PVC pipe and some string and a couple of arrows. That's it. Carlos, yes, I heard that. Oh, Grey Wolf, you got one of the NBC black bags. Good. Uh-huh. Yeah, Alaska Road, Gray Wolf says Alaska Roadkill belongs to the state and you can register to be called to respond to salvage. I've heard of that. I know that Dan Lutz was doing that in the state of Ohio. That apparently, whatever the officer is that finds it tells dispatch and it brings up whatever the 3 or 4 closest individuals are to it. So you don't got to drive all the way across the state. Here in Alabama, we're kind of a lot more good old boys. And so usually the law enforcement or whatever just wants it out of the road, you know, and you don't want to leave it laying beside the road because then the buzzards come to feast on it if nothing else. And that becomes a traffic problem because you got a dozen big turkey vultures trying to feed on it and the car comes up and they all try to flap out in front of the car and you get another wreck. So they want them hauled off if at all possible. And a lot of times the officer has to drag it up in the woods to get it away from the actual side of the road. Buck 110, hello to Rome, Georgia. Jeff, hello there. Yeah, I did the video I showed not long ago about that NBC suit bag. And that really saved me something because in the largest incarnation of my rucksack and haversack is called the Winterhawk set. And I wanted a big bag like that to go underneath. And I was going to have one made through Jay out of the same ripstop water wax canvas to match the bag. But that NBC bag does the same job and they're $15 a piece. And so taking one of those and putting it under there. And then it'd be the Nighthawk rucksack with that underneath. That's where your big clothes would go. There'll be 2 Sparrowhawk sustainment pouches on the side. There'd be a wee hawk in the front center for a quick grab of whatever. And then you'd have the red hawk haversack or the blackbird haversack up on top of the set. And that configuration I call the winter hawk, because that's only in the winter you're going to need all of that at one time, at least in my neck of the woods. Now, you guys doing expeditions into the Rockies or the mountains of Alaska, you may need that big and bulky all the time. I don't. So that's my game plan. I'm still promising to do a video of all the components, that I hook together and etc. And I do plan to do it once it cools off just a little bit, guys. I've got a lot of stuff I want to put together. Jared Oliver, I couldn't tell you how many deer and coyotes I've seen killed alongside the road in my daily commute. I agree. A couple of years ago when I was going to the fall Georgia bushcraft gatherings and I was letting GPS take me through all the back roads, I counted 26 deer that were dead in the road or right beside the road in that 6-hour drive. 26 deer. And it was cool. You could probably pull over and harvest them, And my niece Trinity, the great huntress, she was talking about how she wanted to go on a hunt. I said, honey, just get a rider truck and come down here. We'll ride around. We'll find you all the meat you want for the freezer. Woo. Battle rally. Anybody here have experience specifically with a war bow? I'm looking at sinking some money into a 150 pounder to play with. I'm looking for any good tips or tricks about that. The only big, heavy bows that we ever did was in a thing that we did where you shot long range at corn stuff. And that's part of the Native American side. They would take piles of corn stalks and make them into hoppers, and then you'd have a really long spike on the front of the arrow and try to shoot sometimes 150 yards and hit that target. And those bows were 100 plus, 150, 160 pound type war bows like you're talking about. I shot those a couple times when I was young and studly and had that kind of back power and etc. It's way overkill on anything except big grizzly, big moose, big stuff like that. So as a long range shooting bow, I fully agree with it. But a 150 pounder for a hunting bow, unless you're trying to stop a polar bear or something at long range, they're too hard to draw, too slow, because each one is so much power. I can get 3 arrows in the air with a 80-pound draw in the time you get one in the air with a 150-pound draw. So, one of them things. But, hey, I had an Oneida Eagle, back the first year they made them where the velocity of the arrow was right at, I think, 550 feet per second. It was a blur. It would rip the fletchings right off. In fact, the very next year production, they backed the bows down in power because they told you to wear an arm guard. And the one I had to have it because, and they warned you all over the place, never put a wooden arrow in it because it would just grenade. It was so powerful. But that bow was made for hunting big, dangerous game. And it was way too much horsepower for. I could shoot clean through a pine tree. Pine tree that big around, the arrow would go clean through it, strip all the fletchings. Arrow's no good now. It's corkscrewed when it comes out the other side. And I took quite a few deer with it. And I'm bragging there. Probably a dozen deer. 10 to a dozen deer with it. And somebody else wanted it worse than me. But they can be big and powerful, can be advantage if you're hunting big and powerful game. That's what I'm trying to say. Turtle D, been thinking about one of them Hidden Woodsman haversacks. Look pretty sweet. Hidden Woodsman makes a really good product, guys. They really do. Turtle D, glad you got it. Hope you enjoy it. I hope you have many years of adventures with it. Pine Coast. Blackie, how far back in your family does the Scottish side run? Oh my God. I traced my family, the McThomases got here in 1736, and they came from the Great Glen in Scotland, and that's an area, and they were part of Clan Hatton. We'd say Chatton, but the C is silent. And the farthest reference I can have found of my family is in the 1300s in Scotland. And nobody had a last name really before that. But my family was being hired to fight or to stay out of a fight. We were kind of like the Clan Hatton was 30 or 40 small clans that banded together in the Great Glen of Scotland to keep the big, powerful clans like the Stuarts and stuff like that out. And so their motto was, their symbol and motto was, it was a bobcat wearing an iron glove holding a snake. And their motto was, touch not the cat, but a glove. It means don't come down here unless you want to fight. They would all fight together. And the Thomases, they were Mac Thomas in that day, were some of the best fighting troops they had. In fact, I don't see them used in the evidence I found in church records and stuff. They were fighters. It appears to be there was some sort of security force within them, that they were bred to be fighters. And it's 1300s as far back as I can go. Master Angus invented black Angus cattle. That was part of my family. Back in the day, they took Scottish cows and French cows and crossbred them. And the youngest son was Angus. And so that's what they named the breeds of cattle out of, was him. He's the one that kind of took it and ran with it. So Master Angus. So black Angus cattle. They came up with that, mixing French and Scottish. 1300 as far back as I've been able to trace it. Guardsman, thank you very much. Oh yeah, Gray Wolf. It is time up there for yours to get firewood. I've already got my cord on reserve right now. It was cut last fall. The guy that I'm getting it from, it's sitting there stacked. It's been drying all this heat and everything. I'll go pick it up probably mid-September. And I probably won't have a fire or need a fire till late October. And November is when I'll be running a fireplace to heat the house a little bit. But firewood's not long, but it's about month. About where you're at right now is the time to start looking for filling your tinder bags. Now you start looking for those dry weed flower tops and stuff like that. Everything's starting to dry out. Start collecting it out and put it in the bags and let it dry out, because once you get the first heavy snow and everything else, those winter storms, all that stuff's crushed to the ground. It's gone. So you ain't got that fine tinder anymore. Now you got to shave everything down. So I always do a video every year in the fall telling people, go fill up your tinder bags. You know, I get the big gallon Ziploc bag, excuse me, and I'll get like 2 or 3 of those full of mixed whatever good dry tinder. And I'll leave the bag unzipped and put it out on the hood in the sun and make sure it thoroughly dries out so it doesn't mold, and then stir it around a little bit. And then I put them up on the shelf over here. So I've always got a good tinder bag inside my tinder bottle, ready to go. And battle rally, yeah. For a personal challenge and, like I said, shooting for pure power just to try it out, go for it. You know, like I said, I had a heavy one for shooting long range. Like I had a friend of mine started doing those busks, is what it's called, the festival, and I was invited to be part of that and shoot out and do those corn busks shoots. I did that, but it was work. Yeah, Gray Wolf. That's a lot of people changed their names in Germany after World War One and definitely after World War Two. because of that. And even before that, when it was the 7 or 8 kingdoms that came in the late 1800s and became what we know as Germany, um, which was a new country really in the early 1900s. So a lot of the people that had been involved in that changed their names. You get a real problem trying to trace back through them time periods unless you were somebody rich, had a lot of money, because people that served in this army and got a reputation of being effective or whatever, and then this side loses and all that. Well, they just over here, and it's not Spitz, it's Fritz now or whatever. And Hitler became Hillier. Most of the Hitler family changed their name after World War II. I think the most common name they chose was Hillier, Hilyer, Hiyer. Instead of Hitler, it was Hillier. And a lot of them immigrated to America. And then when you get past 1300, unless you had a lot of money, nobody had a last name. You didn't need it. And it was in the 1300s they started doing censuses where you had to list down a name. Before that, it was John, son of Bill. You know, everybody knew you. I mean, you'd be born, raised, and die within 5 miles. Prior to prior to the American Civil War, the average person in America would be born, raised, lived their entire life, and never travel more than 25 miles from where they were born. Yes, there were some people that went a lot farther, but the average was 25 miles from where you were born. And so that's it. The Revolutionary War, and we hear about Washington's army. Those guys were really, because they never been away from home. They didn't want to march all the way from Georgia to Connecticut because they'd never been more than 25 miles from home. So. Oh yeah, Gray Wolf, they are so determined to keep y'all from using natural resources up there. It's stupid. Y'all are sitting in the biggest pile of natural resources in all of America, and they tell you can't burn wood. Gray Wolf, yeah, it's possible. People were displaced. There were millions of people displaced before, during, and after both of those wars. And I have a lady friend when I was young that she thought that she was Danish, and then they did a in-depth family search and found out she was actually Latvian, but they'd been kicked out of Latvia and ended up in, Denmark. And so they traced it back to Denmark, and she thought, well, I must be Danish. No, they'd only lived in Denmark 35 years. They had been in Latvia. So people move around like we do today. It'll kill. Blackie, do you recommend light or heavy arrows? With a bow, you need a certain spine and weight for the power of the bow. So if you have a 40-pound draw bow, you need arrows that are spined to handle a 40-pound bow. Having said that, if I've got a choice of 2 separate broadheads, one's 100 grain and one's 125 grain, which am I going to pick? If I'm talking about a hog with big, thick hide, I'm going to go with the 125 for motion, power, inertia to slice through that thick hide better. Whereas if I'm shooting something with lighter game, like a deer, which has thin, I'd go with the 100 instead of the 125 because it will have a flatter trajectory at my range. So you got to change them out, whichever ones you want to do. Usually I'll use the heaviest arrow that's okay for it. I don't really like the super light ones, like the super light grain ones that they fly well, they fly flat, but if your game has got any kind of body cavity capacity, the penetration. It's like throwing a ping pong ball. It'll get there in a hurry, but they don't have the mass to penetrate well when it gets there. Ravenwood Survival, good evening. Sanford Brown, good evening. Elvin, good evening. Bill Van, okay. Yeah, I studied for 3 or 4 years, going back. Believe it or not, one of the best helps I had was the Mormon Church. We have a Mormon, which is called Church of Christ. No, no, no. I want to say it wrong, but the Mormon Church. I don't mean to be offensive to anybody. And but I was friends with somebody, and they have pretty good records on a lot of people's history in there. And so going through their archive, I was able to trace my family all the way back to the about 17, I think it was 1790s, through the Mormon Church. Even though my family wasn't Mormon, but they had the records of so many other people in America. They become like a depository of so many other churches' records because they protect them so well. And so we were able to get on a computer screen and start going backwards through my family history and find the names and where they lived and censuses and stuff like that. So. Oh, cool. Ravenwood Survival. Have a good night. Yes, Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Thank you, Jeff. I don't mean to be rude. I just don't know the proper terminology. That is correct, Jeff. Don't forget about a bow. You need to know the draw weight, draw length, 28 inches. His bow is rated at 43 pounds with a draw length to maximum weight to 65 pounds. Yeah. J. Broke the grip frame of my Ruger Blackhawk in half with recoil. Oh boy. Fitting my replacement steel grip and hanging out as we speak. Good luck with that. Hope it goes well. Ravenwood Survival, hello there. Google this, good evening. Giuseppe, my brother, thank you very much for that. Fishing Golf, good evening. Oh, Trooper, Blackie, have you ever done any platform camping or hammock camping high up in a tree? I have done some of that. There used to be a trail um, through the swamp over here in Georgia, and those were basically tree stands, were tree houses, where you would pull up the boat and you climbed up the tree and got up to like a 10 by 10 platform up there between 4 or 5 trees. And then if you were smart, you'd tie a real heavy rope to your canoe and you'd pull that sucker up onto the platform with you. Because if you left it down there in the water during the middle of the night, a gator might decide he wants to take a nap in it. And you wake up in the morning, you'd have a big old gator taking a nap in your canoe. And it was a lot of fun. But I have done that, and then I've slung my hammocks up 8, 10 feet off the ground before for various reasons where it was necessary. And you just get in and out by having a high rope, but you can come off the tree, center up, and get in your hammock. When you come out, you grab a hold of your rope, you swing back to the tree. Way too old to do that now. Oh, lamb and dog, cool. A lot of it you're going to find when you get back to point X, they're going to start telling you that you're related to some king this or queen that or duke or whatever. And a lot of times that is and is not correct. And I'll tell you why. Like I said, when people didn't have last names, you weren't important enough. Your ancestor may have worked on the estate or lived on the estate of the Duke of Farquhar, let's say. And so when you come back in your genealogy, it'll say the Duke of Farquhar. That was the landowner he lived on. It's not saying he was a slave or he was a servant, but he lived there. He may have been a sharecropper living. And that's as far back as the records go. It's the first time you ever popped up is somebody working. And when they say that, it's kind of like in the future, if they search back and found out that the company you work at now, the first reference they have of your name is on a payroll at this company. And so that's what it was. It was payroll or dividend or where he was in some way. And so that's what they mean. And a lot of people mean, I'm descended from the Duke of whatever. It could be you are genuinely descended. And it could also mean that you simply, your ancestor lived on the land, worked with them or whatever. Because my ancestor that came to America, he was a master of horse, which means he raised horses as part of his indentured servitude when he got to the country, and then sold those horses back to the government for the military. And so the land he lived on, that he was part of that community, you know, was that. And then we traced it from there back because when I first saw that, it meant, okay, was he the son of this dude who had a completely different name? And that's when the genealogy explained to me, no, it means he was living there and working there. He's on the payroll. And then we had to step back a little further to Charleston and found where he was sold into slavery. And then we found out the ship he came from Scotland on. And then we went to Scotland, and that's where we found where he was put onto the ship and why he was put onto the ship and a bunch of other family members and stuff. And so that's one of the things you got to kind of keep an eye on too. Mark, I do believe there is hope. Never give up. When you look back at history and you read about the dark times in the past, of the plague, of the Mongol hordes, of the world wars, of the Black Death, people survive. Did they like it? No. But that's the reason we record those times in history, because it was such a struggle. So it did look so hopeless. Never give up hope. Never give up. Keep trying. Don't let them win. You can keep throwing mud at me all you want. I'm a pig at heart. You know what my granddaddy said. Battle rally, yeah, never deliberately, but I have camped in a few deer stands. I hear you. Oh yeah, up there, sleepwalking is not. Oh, and dude, I remember. Oh my God, this platform was 10 by 10, and the big old huge 4 trees sitting there. Of course, they'd clean limbs up. It'd been made by the state or whatever, and so you had these big beams with big lag bolts going through the trees, and then it was decked. And I think there was about 8 to 10 feet, 12 feet at most off the water level. And got up there and I'd slung my hammock up and mosquitoes were eating me alive. And then I got the hammock inside and all night long, all you could just hear was like that. It turned the light, your flashlight on and shine, and it was just a mass. I mean, just a mass of mosquitoes sitting on the outside going, yeah, because it could smell you breathing. Yeah, you wouldn't get out and walk around up there at night. I put it that way. So, Jeff Conley, tell your story about the hammock and the edge of the cliff. Okay. We'd gone up north. I want to say it was in Boone and National Forest, me, David, and Arthur. And we had hiked a long way, and the sun's going down, and we had not reached where we were supposed to be getting. And we finally, right after dark, found this one relatively flat patch. And so Mark and Arthur slung up their little tents, and I had a tree over here, and over the side of the cliff was a tree coming up. Big tree. Alive. Looked good, you know. We're up Rock Mountains, you know, it's up there. And so I got my hammock slung up between it. And it was old U.S. Army jungle hammock, which is a flat hammock with the sides and that little bitty top on it. And you got to zip down the side, get into it, and you put a stick across the end. Well, a lot of disadvantages of that hammock. Really tippy. And so you learn to get up there and just lay flat. If you even wiggle, you're going for a ride. And I done fell out of that hammock before. So I was really questioning my life choices about using that hammock. And so we were so exhausted, I was gone. Well, it didn't seem terrible long after we'd gone to bed. Something moved kind of like, and I woke up, in fear of, did the stick break? What, you know? And everything seemed okay. I went, okay. And I tried to fall back asleep, and suddenly I moved again, and I realized the tree at the bottom is starting to go off the side of the cliff. And it's probably 300-400 feet down to the bottom of that ravine. And so I desperately tried to unzip. And as I flipped around, the tree went. It rolled me upside down, which means I fall out of the hammock and into the nylon and mosquito net. Boom. And then the tree went. That's what saved me, was the stick at the bottom that the rope comes and hooked to snapped when we hit the ground and let it go. Well, that left me hanging off the edge of the cliff like this, my feet down here. I've slid down here, and I'm about to here at the edge of the ground level with my arms out like this trying to hold, and the rope hanging on up there. Well, if I slide off, and I'm on slick nylon and mosquito net, because the actual canvas hammock's on top of me now because I'm upside down. And I'm trying to grip with everything I got. I can't start shifting around. And I go to hollering to my two companions to get their butt up and help me, and they thought I was kidding. Even though that tree went on to the bottom, you know, it must have woke them up, but they didn't realize what that woke them up because they were tired. And finally, they got up and helped pull me back over the cliff, you know, because if I slip, I'm going out the bottom of that nylon, I'm going. So it was a very interesting thing. That was the end of the official U.S. Army jungle hammock. That was her last hurrah right there. I never went back to that hammock again, not even in the backyard. Brian Holbrook, if you're ever up in western Montana, let me know. I will do it. Washburn Billy, good evening. There's plenty of us like-minded folk, far, far more than they want you to think. Remember the old story when we were kids about the grasshoppers and the ants? If the ants ever figure out how many they are and how few we are. Yep. So there's a lot more of us than they think, and they want us to know, and there is a lot more of us. So that's the reason they're panicking and doing what they're doing now, because they're running out of time. Yep. Battle rally. Yeah, Blackie almost earned his wings that day. Almost. Clorox ain't never going to fix them Fruit of the Looms. I agree, Brian. Monk, hello there. Yes, Michigan Silverback. Blackie, you were going to look into the Silver Wolf hat pins. Did you get a chance? I got with my niece Heather, and she's researching it right now. And when she gets a sampling, a choice of what it was, I will pass it on. So we're all working on it. Her full time job, getting close to beginning school, she's kind of wrapped up right now, but won't be long. We'll get more stuff coming out. Monk McCool. Well, we've been talking about bows and archery and quite a few other topics. So, is there, Monk, is there anything you'd like to talk about? Don Duval, thank you very much. Oh, I have, Mark, I have full faith in this country. I really do. You know, I really do. We've had hard times. Read a history book. This country has faced many hard times. And, but usually when it all goes sideways, we all seem to band together. You know, that's what happened with 9/11. They thought when they did that, that would scare everybody. You remember you couldn't find an American flag because everybody had bought them and had them in their yard after 9/11? How many people lined up to join after 9/11? You know, we'll fight each other till you piss us off. And then oh, forget about it. Then you're the number one. Oh, Ken Albridge, good. Yes, you got you a Red Hawk. Awesome. Trinity. Oh, cool. Getting some vintage archery gear. John, any more black powder vids coming out? I will be doing some more. As soon as it cools off just a little bit, you got to understand. And I will be posting on the Rumble. When I do, I'll start announcing it again. And I think I'm going to go back and start over on the Percussion Revolver series over on Rumble and take my earlier work and kind of update it a little bit and be a little bit more clear, you know, and go through each of the guns step by step, all the tips and tricks. I've had several people want me to demonstrate the 100-yard zero with one. So I've got a place now I can go shoot out to 100 yards with a cabin ball revolver and do that, take a life-size target and put the belt buckle on it and show what the men about aim for the belt buckle and why. That's going to be one of the ones I want to do this fall. So I will. And y'all may have heard in the news how Google just got stung real hard in the courts, but they are a monopoly, and that is also going to affect YouTube and everybody else. So I'm hoping that things are going to, in the coming months, lighten up where I can come back to YouTube doing my black powder content and stuff like that. That's fingers crossed. Thank you much, Tim Pierce. E-bike nomad, of course, that's what they do. Oh, Monk, do you have trouble with black powder in the south with all the humidity? You can. One, I make sure I've got a good tight fitting round ball that fits in the chamber or conical so it fully seals on that end, and I keep it capped. Now, how long can you keep it loaded? I have found up to 2 years, and if you have any doubt, change the caps because usually the weak link is the cap. And so, if you've been out in a driving rain all night camping change caps. Just throw that cap away, put a fresh cap on. It'll probably go bang as long as you had a good fitting cap to begin with. It'll be okay. But the humidity normally kills the cap before it'll ever have enough to kill that powder charge because of how tight the orifices and everything else. At least in my usage of in camping, canoeing, having it always out in the weather with me, the heat, the wet, yeah, they almost always went bang with me once you learn how to put it together. Washburn Billy. Oh, we've just been talking about, heavy bows and tips and tricks and stuff like that. Y'all remember my student Roger, who appeared in several of my videos early on where I was teaching him how to do some stuff for camping. He's since moved on to his passion right now, is flying drones and doing photography with it. He's good. I mean, he is really good with it. Well, he'd got into shooting archery probably 8 years ago, and he called me up and asked me, so would I come over and give him some pointers? He sent me a picture, and he had a group about like that. And he said, that's as tight as I can get it. I said, okay, well, I'll be glad to come over and give you some pointers. So I went over and had lunch with him and his wife, and, he said, okay, I'm going to go outside and warm up. After we'd got done eating, I was helping the wife clean up the table. And he went outside and went to warming up, and I talked to her about another 10 minutes, and I come out. And I hadn't seen him shoot or nothing. And I walked out on the deck, and I watched him shooting. And when he shot his last round, last arrow, he had a group about like that. And he said, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. And I went, Roger, yeah, you're shooting at 70 yards. Well, yeah. Nobody had ever taught him how to shoot a bow. He was shooting at 70 yards and had a group like that. I said, you do realize that archery range is like 25 yards and less for hunting? No. So I went and pulled the target up to 25 yards. He was stacking them in there like the bottom of a Coke can. I said, you don't need any help, son. But he didn't know. He thought a bow was supposed to shoot as far as a rifle did. So well, I could hit a deer with a shotgun at that range. So that's what I figured how far away he had to shoot with a bow. Dude, you need to get into archery competitions. Seriously. With no training, you walk up and do that? Yeah. Oh, Google this. Give the younger generation a map and a compass and no phone. See how they will do in the woods. That'd be a reality TV. Ravenswood, no problem. Jeff, Blackie, can you tell us more about why YouTube income has dropped? One of the big factors is the money is going somewhere else. And this is a matter of public record. There was a young lady on X not long ago that posted an interview where the political party, and you know the one I'm talking about, is paying anywhere from $3,000 to $10,000 for a YouTuber, an Instagram, an influencer to do a pro video for their candidate. And that's where all the ad revenue money seems to be going, because my ad revenue money is about a quarter of what it should be. And it's same amount of views, same amount of videos coming out, same amount of responses. All my algorithm, when you go back and look at like a year ago and we're back the last 10 years, it should be here, and it's here. And there just ain't no money. And I think that that's what they're doing. They're pushing forth their agenda. The people who are in charge of the platform, they have their agenda, the way they want it to go. And so they want TikTok videos, like they want 2-3 minute high, da-da-da. And we get a thing every month, being creators that you've got a pretty good sized channel and all that. I'm considered a partner. And so you get a thing that's every month, and it's some update of what's going on now. And back in March, the guy that does it said, okay, in the past you had really good content, and you got a lot of followers. Well, that doesn't matter anymore. And we don't care you got a lot of followers. We're not going to push your videos out to your followers. We're interested more in content. I kept saying content, which meant their content. And so take somebody like bigger me, like Sean Kelly. Sean Kelly's got around 1 million subscribers, right? You produce a video, you put it out. They send it out to 10%. That's all they're going to send it to, 10%. That's the reason so many of you say, I don't get notifications of your video, because YouTube, in its great capacity, decides that you don't need to see it today. And so it sends it out to, I guess, a random 10%, which would be 100,000 for him. Okay. Based on their response, how well they respond to it, how fast they respond to it, blah, 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 they will then send it out to 50%, which would be 500,000. Based on that response, whether or not they respond, how fast they respond, then they'll send it out to the rest of them. So the average person is somewhere in the third tier. That's like the nosebleed section at the concert. You never see the content of the people you're trying to watch because of that. But if they're pushing the content of someone like this influencer that's willing to get paid $3,000 to do a video once a day, once a week, the thing I got back in my email as part of my channel back in January said that if I would do a pro video of this political party, which I would not do a video for that political party, sorry. If I would do a pro video for that they would pay $400 per video, 1 video a day limit. $400 a day for how many months until the election? So starting in January. And so you wonder where all the ad money went? Over there. Now, that's the guy sitting here producing the videos. Now you're the guy wanting to advertise onto YouTube, and you've got a product, and you're paying YouTube to do it. YouTube wants 60-second long videos. How many commercials can you put on a 60-second or an ad on a 60-second video? Maybe one. You, the manufacturers that's wanting to advertise for your product, you want big videos so I can put 2 or 3 because this person's liked, he's not controversial, he's in the demographic that I want to promote my product. Can I put 3 of my videos on his next video, 3 of my ads on his next video? So they want long content creators. See? And then there's me, the guy that's actually producing it, trying to make a little money at it, that I'm not wanting to be affiliated with politicals or anything else. I'm just wanting to do bushcraft, witchcraft, and answer your guys' questions. That's why I'm here, is to produce these videos for you guys. That's my quest, so my purpose. And so when you're doing the job, you're getting the views, you're getting the response, people are sending you comments and questions, you're doing lives, you're doing all this stuff, and your pay goes from here to here. It can be really frustrating. It really can. And that's why reason you see a lot of the big name channels have suddenly cut back to where they're doing 1 video a week, 1 video a month, and they've got to go get a job because it's just simply the money ain't there they were making. And some of them big channels, I'm not talking about little old bitty blackie redneck from Alabama, I'm talking about the big guys. We're making something like 20 grand a month off their YouTube, and now they're not. I hope they ain't got a mortgage and all to go with that, So that's one of the reasons. It's tough. I've had people say, Blackie, you need to do like Patreon. Because that's what a lot of the firearms channels do, is they just do Patreon. Because that way YouTube will let you post it if you're not making any money off of it. It doesn't hurt their agenda, I guess. And so you can just simply turn off monetization, and your channel is being paid, like my Bellevue, Hickok 45, and a lot of the gun channels. Kentucky Ballistics, stuff like that. Patreon is what keeps them because they're making money that way. And I've had people want me to do that, and I don't know. I hope I don't have to do that. I'm just trying to float along and make my way, you know. But I'm gonna keep making videos. That's the game plan for me. Okay, didn't want to be so long-winded, but there we go. Metalworks welding. Blackie, I'm new to stone tools, but would an obsidian plate be a viable asset to a kit? Yes. Obsidian can be sharper than any knife. In fact, in certain eye surgery, there is no steel that can be sharp enough for what they want. And so it's an obsidian flake. It's an obsidian blade that they use because it can be sharp enough to cut almost at the atomic level, far sharper than any man-made steel. So yeah, if you need a precision like slicer or something, possible. Just how you use it and how you apply it, etc. Okay, where are we at? Saying Pathfinder has one. Okay, got a nesting cup. Ken Albridge, good night. Be safe. Battle rattle, yeah, they are. But I'm hoping with some of the things that are in the wind right now, that may change. But we shall see. Again, we don't give up. Understand, Michigan Silverback. I understand. Good night, Gulf Coast. Yeah, it's about time for us to call it quits anyway. Well, guys, thank you very much for all the comments. I really, really appreciate it. And thank you so much for the support. You're the reason I do this. All of you, really. My job is to pass on what information I can to you to help you in your journey. To, as the old man told me, reach back and give you a pull. And if I can help, I want to help. I want to help the veterans. I want to help the Silver Wolves. I want to help that guy that has no clue. He's got an interest and a desire, and he's stuck in a high rise in the middle of a major city, and there's nobody around here that can give him an idea on how to do it. That's the guy I want to talk to try to help him out and do what I can. And that's the reason I'm here. So, guys, thank you very much. God bless. And I'll be back on next Thursday night unless something happens. Till then, guys, safe journeys.